Super Trax now takes you to the Hubert H. Humphrey Metrodome in Minneapolis for mud racing with a unique twist. This mud racing is not one lane, one vehicle at a time. It's side by side. You're still racing against the clock, but you'll get a feel for if you can beat your competitors. Now, in mud racing, U.S. hot rod style, you have an 80-foot-long mud pit. It's 36 inches deep. You have to cover that 80 feet as quickly as you can, but then you've got to shut it down within 80 feet. If you go through the barrier 80 feet from the finish line, you are disqualified. You've got to cover 80 feet as fast as you can, and then you've got to get shut down within the next 80 feet. What they're all doing in the first round that we're about to watch is trying to make it into the fast four, because when we come back to the big money shootout, only the 4 fastest qualifiers are still alive. So you've got the basics. We're ready to go mud racing with the U.S. Hot Rod Association here on Super Trax. We will call the lane that is furthest away from this camera, lane 1. Closest to us is lane 2. In lane 1 is Abe with Joe Reinbold, and lane 2 toward the bottom of your screen, that's Mud Dragon and Bill Worth. Oh, just in time, Abe gets it shut down, and you can see he's fired up about it. Joe Reinbold by inches keeps from getting disqualified, and clearly he'll be our leader after the first 2 runs. On the replay, you can see an excellent start for Abe. He keeps the lead all the way, and then barely shuts her down in time. Look at how close he came to the DQ marker. 3.35 seconds. The leader is Abe and Joe Reinbold at 3.35. Again, the fast 4 will make it to the shootout. Next up, Crystal Blue Persuasion will be in lane number 1, Stephen Ron. And still running wild goes out of lane number 2. That is Mark Manowal. Time to beat, 3.35. You want to be on top. Oh, my, running wild, bogged down in the mud of lane number 2. In lane number 1, though, a pretty good shot for Crystal Blue Persuasion. You can see how the mud really kind of bogged down that second lane and took running wild down. A good solid run, though, up in the top of the screen in lane number 1 for Crystal Blue Persuasion, Stephen Ron. He is our new leader at 3.103. So that's the new time to beat if you want to sit on top. Our third pairing works its way out. Stark Raven Mad goes in lane number 1. That's Mike Stark. See why he named it that. And TNT, T-Ray, out of Louisville, goes in the lane number 2, closest to the bottom of the screen. Good run for TNT. Oh, he can't stop it. He could not stop it by the end of the 80-foot mark, and it's officially a disqualification for T-Ray and TNT, who until that point looked like he might have one of the better runs so far. But that's the tricky part of U.S. Hot Rod Mud Racing. You've got to stop before that barrier, and T-Ray couldn't do it. Oh, you can see the frustration. He's disqualified. A 4.406 for Stark Raven Man. Our next pairing will bring Ecstasy out onto the track. We'll get a look at Ecstasy going now into lane number 1. Leonard Iskirk is just another Ecstasy. Closest to you, lane number 2 is Swamp Rat Randy Van Wardheisen. Both mudders pulling up down to the start line. The Swamp Rat gets a good shot. He's the quicker of the 2, and it's a DQ in lane 1. A disqualification for just another Ecstasy. Swamp Rat, though, had a good run. Randy Van Wardheisen may be sitting on top. Let's watch him again. Still, he seemed to get out of the hole a little late, but made up for it on the back end with a good solid shot. And then Van Wardheisen is able to easily shut the Swamp Rat down in time. However, just another Ecstasy can't get it done in 80 feet. It's a DQ in lane 1, but look at lane 2. Randy Van Wardheisen and the Swamp Rat is now our fast qualifier, 3.022. So at least for the moment, Van Wardheisen is leading them towards the shootout. But you got to make the fast 4, and there are a bunch of them still to come. It's Wild Thunder will be up next. Wild Thunder coming out of lane number 1. Randy Van Warnhuizen back behind the wheel. That's his other vehicle. Time Traveler going in lane number 2. Bud Thompson. And a disqualification. Time Traveler had a super run going, but couldn't shut it down in time. And it's Wild Thunder also was DQ. Both lanes disqualified on this run. It's too bad for Bud Thompson because I think Time Traveler would have easily made the Fast 4 at least to this point. But you got to stop it in time, too. It's just not how fast you can go. It's how fast you can go and still stop it in time. Double disqualification on that run. Both times are thrown out, and Randy Van Warnhuizen still leading the way with that 3.022 in the Swamp Rat. More mud action in the Metrodome now. Our next pairing, the Mudbuster, will be coming up. The Mudbuster is piloted by Mark Green, while going in lane number 2, Psycho Babble. That's Dwayne Hurst in Psycho Babble. Closest to you right now, pulling up to the start line. 3.022 is the time. Two good times, and they both stopped in time. Yes, indeed. Excellent run right there. Mudbuster and Psycho Babble, I'll bet at least for the moment, are both inside the top 4. There's Psycho Babble on the isolated replay, picking up mud and stopping in time. In lane number 1, the run was almost as good for Mudbuster. And the times are indeed the 2 best so far. Your leader is out of lane 2, Psycho Babble, at 2.470. And in lane 1, the time for Mudbuster is second fastest so far, 2.757. So those two now sit at the top of the heat as Point Blank will come up next in lane 1. Gordon Chessie behind the wheel there. And Hang On goes out of lane number 2 closest to the camera. John Daly behind the wheel, and he hopes to be hanging on. There you get a good look at the back of a mud racing vehicle. That's the kill switch. It's hooked to each one. That's an 80-foot-long kill switch, and it pulls out of the engine. The engine is killed immediately at the end of 80 feet. A DQ in lane number 1, but lane 2, Hang On, looks good. Point Blank disqualified and fried the engine. Fire extinguishers being brought over, but it looks like everything's out. And in lane number 2, Hang On had an excellent run. Now remember, the time to beat for fast time is 2.47, and to make it into the fast 4 is 3.022. The time coming up, and it's a good one for John Daly and Hang On, 2.485. Right now, that will make him number 2 in qualification. Second best so far, John Daly and Hang On. Lane number 1 is 1733 Heartbeat. Jim Bamford, the pilot there. And coming up in lane number 2, we'll see the South Side Shaker. Rick Smith, the pilot on the South Side Shaker. Here again, you get a look at probably the most important safety feature in mud racing. That is a kill switch. It hooks into a pin that will completely kill the engine. And if that cable is 80 feet long at the end of the run, the engine is automatically killed no matter what the mud racer does. Then he's got to stop it in 80 feet. And indeed, that was a super run for Heartbeat coming out of lane number 1. Jim Bamford had an excellent shot, although he's pumping a lot of smoke right now. On the replay, you can see a real good start. A little bit of wheel spin, but he got out of there in good shape. And 1733 Heartbeat, I think, is in the fast 4. Indeed, at least for the moment, he is one of the 4 fastest. 2.786. Heartbeat in lane number 1 is among the fast 4. The time to beat is still 2.47, but again, that run in lane 1 is good enough for the 1733 Heartbeat to, at least for the moment, be qualified for the shootout. Our next pairing coming to the line will be Maniac in lane number 1, farthest away from you, and Bushwhacker is closest to you. The Maniac is Daryl Hurst. He'll bust out of that first lane. And again, Bushwhacker has the distinction coming out of lane number 2, Tim Finch behind the wheel. 2.786 to make it to the Fast Four. We'll see if that run was good enough for the Bushwhacker. Maniac never got it going and sinks in the mud. On the replay, you can see the Maniac just doesn't go anywhere except straight down. Bushwhacker gets a pretty good-looking run in right there. Again, he's got to be 2.786 to make it into the Fast Four, at least for the moment. Was it good enough? Yes, it is. Here it comes. 2.607. So it puts him on the bubble. He can get knocked out of that Fast Four, but at least for right now, he is in there at 2.607. 32 Special will now come up. Bad News is in the other lane. 32 Special will be in lane number 1, and Bad News goes out of lane number 2. Lynn Brink, the pilot on the 32 Special. Roger Windsor and Bad News. And it looks like there's a problem trying to get Bad News started. They're going to force the starting fluid on down in there, but Bad News can't seem to get her fired. In the meantime, 32 Special continues to wait at the starting line, hoping for a chance to go. And Lynn Brink apparently will run this shot by himself. Indeed, 32 Special will get a solo run here, and Bad News can't start. Excellent run. That may be enough to make it into the shootout. 2.520 for the 32 Special. That's going to be the time, and it is indeed enough. Lynn Brink has made it, at least for the moment, into the shootout. As a matter of fact, Lynn Brink is in because that 2.520 for the moment is third best. And there's only one more competitor to go. So Lynn Brink, indeed, has the 32 Special in. Psychobabble is definitely in the shootout. Hang On is definitely in the shootout. So is the 32 Special. The question is, can the Papa Smurf, John Herzog, out of Carlinsville, Illinois, can Papa Smurf take that final spot? No, doesn't look like it's happening for Papa Smurf. John Herzog did not ever get it going the way he wanted to, and his time will be very slow, coming in now at 4.397. So unfortunately for Papa Smurf, he'll not be making it in to today's shootout. The Fast Four will be coming back in just a little bit. Psychobabble, about halfway through, put down a time of 2.470, and nobody could beat it. So at least in the first round of competition, Psychobabble is the best. But all the times are thrown out now, and they come back one more time. The four fastest go for the big prize in the Metrodome. It'll be Psychobabble, Hang On, 32 Special, and Mudbuster qualifying for the shootout in the mud of the Metrodome. It's all coming up here.